House of the Dragon Season 3 has 3 official trailers. The one dropped, then the second, then the final one. 2.5 minutes of fire and foreshadowing. And if you watch them like most people, once, maybe twice, catching the dragons and the big dramatic lines, you missed almost everything. Because HBO does not make these trailers for casual viewers. They make them for the people who read Fire and Blood. They hide entire character fates in single frame. They put a dragon egg with blood on it in a shot that lasts less than a second. They tell you who lives, who dies, and who betrays who, all without a single line of a dialogue. I went through all the 3 trailers, frame by frame, line by line, and I am going to walk you through every hidden detail, trailer by trailer, in the exact order they were released. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what Season 3 is building toward, and who is not going to survive it. First teaser opens inside the Red Keep, and the very first thing they show you is Alicent walking toward the Iron Throne. But Aemond is already sitting on it. His first words, "Where were you?" Now, if you have watched the show from the beginning, this shot should feel familiar. In the very first episode of this series, Rhaenyra walked into the throne room and found Daemon sitting on the Iron Throne, a place he had no right to be. He was testing her, daring her to remove him. Aemond is doing the exact same thing to his mother, but here's what the show is actually telling you with this shot. The Green's internal power structure has flipped. Aemond is not asking permission anymore. He's already sitting, and with Aegon II, the burned and bedridden after Rock's Rest, there is nobody who can physically stop him. In Fire and Blood, Aemond was never meant to sit the throne. He was the second son. But the book also never explicitly states whether he wanted it for himself or only as a regent. The show is not being ambiguous. The show is telling you in the first 10 seconds, Aemond wants the crown and he is not waiting for anyone to hand it to him. Then teaser cuts to Dragonstone, Rhaenyra at the painted table. She says, "Alicent came to Dragonstone, she will open the gates and surrender to me." This is the direct continuation from Season 2 finale. Alicent secretly traveled to Dragonstone and offered Rhaenyra the keys to the city. Now Rhaenyra is briefing her council on that agreement. But look at the painted table itself, the massive carved map of Westeros beneath her. This is the same table Stannis Baratheon used for his war councils in Game of Thrones, nearly 170 years later. The wooden dragon faces they move across the map for tactical planning, those are identical to the carved markers Stannis used. The table connects both civil wars across centuries. Then Jace speaks. You cannot trust her. This is the first crack. Jace pushes back against his mother's plan immediately. In Fire and Blood, Jace is portrayed as sharper than Rhaenyra at this stage, more politically minded, more strategic. He does not believe the Greens can be trusted to surrender peacefully, and he is right. But there is a layer beneath this argument that only book readers catch. If Jace dies at the Battle of the Gullets soon after this disagreement, then their final interaction was a fight. His last words to his mother were telling her she was wrong to trust Alicent, and she didn't listen. The show does not say that here, the show just lets the argument happen. But the weight of it, the weight of what this argument will mean when Jace is gone, that sits beneath every word. Now the teaser cuts to the Vale of Arryn, craggy peaks, mist, and a dragon soaring through the mountains. If you watched the Season 2, you remember that Rhaena Targaryen, Rhaenyra's stepdaughter, the one dragon-less Targaryen, learned from Lady Jane Arryn that there was a wild dragon in the Vale, a dragon with no rider. This is that dragon, and this is the biggest adaptation change the show has made to Fire and Blood. In the book, a low-born girl named Nettis claimed this wild dragon. The dragon is called Sheep Stealer, named because it steals sheep from the hill tribes. Nettle tames it by feeding it. She fights for Team Black, and after the war, she disappears into the mountains of the moon with Sheep Stealer and is never seen again. The show has cut Nettis entirely. Instead, they have given her storyline to Rhaena. Rhaena never writes Sheep Stealer in book. Her dragon, Morning, hatches much later after the war, but the show is considering characters, giving Rhaena the dragon she deserves and making her arc about claiming what she was never supposed to have. But here is the thing nobody talks about. In the Lord of the Vale, there is a mountain clan called the Bond Men. Their initiation ritual, a boy must give a part of his body to fire to prove his courage. The Masters of Westeros believe this practice started because generations ago, an offshoot clan encountered a fire witch in the mountains who commanded a dragon. They sent their boys to bring her gift and risk the flames. Rhaena is going to become that fire witch. The Bond Men, a clan mentioned in the main Game of Thrones series, are being created right here. Their origin story is Rhaena in a cave with Sheep Stealer. The show is not just adapting the book, it is building the mythology that feeds into the original series. Then a blue dragon flying above an army marching through a field. A man in ornate armor leads them. The dragon is Tessarion, the Blue Queen, and this is Daeron Targaryen entering the war. If you are a show-only viewer, you might be confused right now. Daeron is Alicent's youngest son. He has been completely absent from the first 2 seasons, not even mentioned by name. Book readers have been asking where he is since season 1, and the show finally confirms. He's been in Old Town this whole time, fostered with high towers, and now he is coming north with an army. The man leading beneath him is Lord Armon Hightower, played by Joms Norton. He is Otto Hightower's nephew, the head of House Hightower in Old Town. In Fire and Blood, Ormond is not just heavily characterized, he is a name on a page, a historical figure who dies at the First Battle of Tumbleton. But the show is expanding him significantly. They are giving the Green Army a face beyond Criston Cole and Aemon, a commander who genuinely believes his cause is righteous. This is when the teaser cuts to Aemon voiceover. The king has abdicated the throne. A new dawn is coming, a new line of unsullied kings. Stop here. Unsullied kings. That word choice is deliberate. The unsullied are the slave soldier of Essos, men who cannot father children. But unsullied also means incorruptible, untainted, and pure. Aemon is positioning himself and his line as something above the messy succession politics that started this war. He does not say Aegon's line, he does not say the true king, he says a new line. Aemon is not fighting to restore his brother, he is building his own claim, and the show is not subtle about it. The teaser now throws you into the Battle of Gullet, ship burning, Corlys Velaryon commanding his fleet, dragon fire engulfing vessels, soldiers dragged into craters by flame, a dragon crashing towards the water. The Gullet is bloodiest naval battle in Westerosi history. It takes place in the narrow sea channel between Dragonstone and Massey's Hook. The Triarchy, the alliance of Lys, Mar, and Tyrus, breaks through Corlys Velaryon's naval blockade, and Team Black's dragon engage in a fight they were not prepared for. This battle consumes an entire episode. Ryan Condal has called it arguably the craziest episode of television ever made, and the teaser shows you fragments, glimpses of chaos, never letting you see the full picture. But there is one shot that matters more than all others. Jace yells, Dracarys, and Vermex breathes fire onto the Triarchy fleet. In Fire and Blood, Vermex flies too low during this battle. A crossbow bolt brings the dragon down. Vermex crashes into the sea. Jace, Rhaenyra's eldest son and heir, is shot full of arrows by Triarchy sailors as he struggles in the water. His body sinks into the gullet and is never recovered. The teaser shows Vermex flying at the deck level. It shows him dipping his claw into the water, a direct visual callback to Meleys dipping her claw into the forest at Rock Roost before Vhagar killed her. Same visual language and same outcome. Then it cuts to Rhaenyra banging on a locked door, in tears, a skull visible near her. If the trailer is telling you what the book already knows, Rhaenyra was locked in her chambers at Dragonstone during the battle, possibly on Jace's order to keep her from flying Syrax into the fight. And her last interaction with her son was an argument. That is the tragedy of the Gullet, not just the death, but that they died with unfinished argument hanging between them. Vhagar appears over Harrenhal, the ancient she-dragon nearly 200 years old, scarred, enormous, burning the garrison below. In Fire and Blood, after Daemon abandons Harrenhal strategically, Aemon flies Vhagar there and retakes the castle. He executes every member of House Strong remaining inside. The teaser confirms this, Vhagar laying down fire on castle grounds. Harrenhal matters because it is where Daemon and Aemon's stories converge. It is where Aelys River, the mysterious woman rumored to be a witch, resides, and it is where eventually the final showdown between Daemon and Aemon will take place. But here is what the first teaser does brilliantly. It shows you Daemon in full dragon armor, sword drawn, fighting in what appears to be the Riverland, and then it cuts to his voiceover. You are the queen of dragons, you have an absolute power within your grasp. He is speaking to Rhaenyra, and the line echoes Viserys' first words about Targaryen exceptionalism. But twisted through Daemon's ruthless filter, he is not talking about duty or legacy, he is talking about destruction. Absolute power is not a metaphor, it is a dragon's, and he is telling her to use them without restraint. The first teaser closes with a battle montage, dragons in the sky, Gullet burning, Rhaenyra crying, and the title card, Absolute Power is within grasp. It reads like a promise, but if you know the book, it reads like a prophecy of doom. The second teaser opens with Damon's voice, speaking to Rhaenyra. You now have the power no man has ever wielded. You will have an empire unassailable, Rhaenyra, and our children will rule it forever and a day. This is Daemon at his most persuasive, and it echoes everything Viserys ever said about Targaryen destiny. But the word you need to hear is the children. Our children will rule it forever and a day. In fire and blood, Daemon's promise come true in the most literal dynastic sense possible, though it come at a horrific cost. The green bloodline of Alicent Hightower is eventually entirely extinguished. Instead, it is Rhaenyra and Daemon's two sons, Aegon the younger, Aegon III, and Viserys the younger, Viserys II, who inherit the Iron Throne. In fact, every single Targaryen monarch who rules after the Dance of the Dragons descends directly from Daemon and Rhaenyra's marriage. Yet there is deep irony here. The line promises eternity, but the word delivers ashes. By the time their children actually take the throne, the dragons are dead, the family is fractured, and the empire Daemon promises is a hollowed out shell of its former glory. And then, Corlys Velaryon responds, all that remains is for you to decide what you want from this war. Corlys is level-headed. He always has been, and this conversation sets up the central philosophical split on Team Black. Corlys wants a measured victory. Daemon wants annihilation. The tension between these two men, the most experienced military commander and the most dangerous dragon rider, will define every decision Rhaenyra makes. Now the second teaser shows you something the first one only hinted at. Elderly Northmen drums grey-bearded, fierce men carrying minimal armor and heavy weapons. These are the Winter Wolves. Cregan Stark's 2,000 greybeards. In fire and blood, Jace flew to Winterfell and forged a pact of ice and fire. But with winter approaching, Cregan could not spare able-bodied young men for sudden war. So the old men volunteered. Men who would otherwise be a burden on their families through the long winter. Men who chose to die in battle instead of starving in the cold. Their unofficial motto, we have come to drive for the Dragon Queen. And you can see it in the way they are shot. Minimal armor, heavy weapons, no fear. Not one of these men expects to survive the war. They are not fighting to win, they are fighting to make their death count for something. Then the teaser cuts to Aegon II, burned, broken, running through a forest with Larry Strong. And he says, I'm going to kill my brother or die in the attempt. Not Aemon, not Daemon. Aegon says he is going to kill his brother. In Fire and Blood, it is never explicitly stated that Aemon deliberately burned Aegon at Rook's Rest. The book leaves it ambiguous through conflicting account. Was it an accident in the chaos of dragon combat, or did Aemon see an opportunity and take it? The show is not being ambiguous. The show is telling you Aemon tried to kill his brother, and Aegon knows it. This is Green Civil War within Civil War. Aegon versus Aemon, the Born King versus the usurping brother, and the Iron Throne is barely even relevant to this fight anymore. This is about vengeance. Alicent speaks to Aemon. You will do things that your heart would have recoiled from before you come to throne. She is maneuvering him, convincing him to leave King's Landing and take Vhagar to the Riverland. But she is not telling him why. The real reason. She needs Aemon and Vhagar out of the city so she can honor her surrender agreement with Rhaenyra. Alicent is pitting her own son against Rhaenyra's enemy, not to help him win but to make him someone else's problem. The political calculation is cold, and Aemon, who thinks he is making the strategic decisions, is being paid by his own mother. Then the second teaser gives Lord Aemon Hightower his debut line. The Targaryens are a savage race we act with holy purpose to restore a rightful king. This is not a dragon warfare. This is a propaganda campaign. Aemon frames the Green cause as a holy crusade. He does not say we want power. He says we have a purpose. He is a man who genuinely believes he is on the right side of history. Not a cynical schemer like Otto, but a true believer. And the teaser shows him addressing a cheering crowd of Reach Lords. The lightning is warm, the mood is celebratory. Compare this to every shot of Rhaenyra, cold, shadowed, alone, paranoid, and the visual argument is clear. The Greens are building support. Rhaenyra is losing hers. The second teaser now goes deep into Harrenhal. Aemon in Great Hall, sword drawn. Draw your sword. In Fire and Blood, Aemon puts the entire castle to sword when he retakes it. He makes a pile of strong heads 3 feet tall. The teaser framing "draw your sword, not kneel or surrender" implies he is not executing prisoners, he is dueling them. He wants them to fight back. It makes the massacre feel active, personal, not clinical. Then Vhagar laying down while breathing fire like an old dog drinking from its bowl, the largest living dragon in the world casually burning men alive while barely lifting its head. And then Criston Cole's voiceover. Look to the sky, doom and ruin surround us. We will all become beasts before our end. Cole is speaking over footage of dead soldiers arranged around tables as if feasting, the black psychological war tactic from Butcher's Wall, and guerrilla fighters hiding among corpses. In Fire and Blood, Cole dies at Butcher's Wall. He begs for an honorable single combat. The Northmen deny him. He is shot full of arrows like common soldier. Become beast, the line is ironic. It's the black who fights like beast in this battle, and it's the green who get butchered. Now the teaser cuts to a brief blink and you'll miss it shot. A blonde woman in labor. Frame by frame analysis confirm it's Helena. Mailer is being introduced. Helena has 3 children in Fire and Blood, Jaehaerys, Jaehaera and Mailer. The show only introduced the twins in season 1 and 2. George R.R. Martin publicly condemned the omission of Mailer. It was the first adaptation change he openly criticized, and he cited it as the start of his falling out with showrunner Ryan Condal. Mailer's death in the book is one of the most horrific moments in the entire dance, torn apart by a mob at Bitter Bridge. The teaser's confirmation that he is being introduced means the show is finally honoring the full tragedy of Helena's line. The second teaser shows Rhaenyra burning green banners, tapestries with high tar crest, bed frames. It's time to redecorate. This is practical, removing green symbol from Red Keep after she takes the city. But it is also cathartic. She is burning away Alicent Present from castle she grew up in. The same hall she ran through as a girl now cleansed with fire. But the shot that matters most, Rhaenyra with a skull. In Fire and Blood, Jay's body is never recovered from the gullet. It stinks into the sea. The skull suggests the show may handle this differently. Either his remains are recovered or the skull is a symbolic reminder that every victory costs something you cannot replace. Then Alicent, Helena and Jaehaera fleeing through tunnels. Maegor's secret passage beneath the Red Keep, the same tunnel Varys and Tyrion used in Game of Thrones. Alicent had a deal with Rhaenyra, safe passage out of the city in exchange for surrender. But the teaser shows her telling someone it is no longer safe here. Something went wrong. The deal fell apart and now she is running. The teaser closes on Rhaenyra. There will be no doubt who the gods have chosen to rule. In the first teaser, this line sounded triumphant. Here, after everything you have seen, the gullet, the skull, the tears, the burning, it sounds like an epitaph. She will rule, there will be no doubt, and it will destroy everyone around her. Then, the final trailer opens different from both teasers. No dragon, no throne room. A field of dead soldiers, bodies contorted, banners burned, armor glinting crimson and gold in the ash. This is the Battle of Lakeshore, better known as the Fish Feed. In Fire and Blood, the Winter Wolves and River Lords ambushed the Lannister army as it marched east. The battle got its name because the dead were so numerous, they fed the feast of the god of Eye for weeks. The Greens lost over 1,000 knights and men at arms, including Lord Jason Lannister himself. The trailer doesn't show you a battle, it shows you the aftermath. And that is more effective. You don't see the glory, you see the bodies. Then a new voice speaks. These are turbulent times. This is High Septon, the head of the Faith of Seven. And this is the first meaningful appearance in the entire series. In the Fire and Blood, High Septon during the dance is not a major character. He is a political figure who anoints Rhaenyra, counsels restraint and publicly denounces the violence. But his presence in this trailer signals something important. The Faith is entering the war. When the small folk of King's Landing eventually turn against Rhaenyra, when they storm the dragon pit and kill 5 dragons with their bare hands, it is the High Septon's voice that could have calmed them or incited them. The trailer is planting that seed now. Rhaenyra at the painted table. Their defeat is written will secure the city without further bloodshed. She means this. She genuinely believes that she can take King's Landing with minimal violence. In Fire and Blood, she does at first. Alicent surrenders the gates, Daemon lands first inside the Red Keep, it works. But the further bloodshed she promises to avoid is coming. It is coming from her own hand, from her own paranoia, from the betrayals that surround her. The trailer lets her say the line without undercutting it. It lets you believe her, and that makes that follows hurt more. Then Corlys Velaryon speaks. The queen has many dragons, but her subjects do not feel safe, nor should they. Corlys says, nor should they. He is not just reading the tension, he is agreeing with it. He is co-signing the fear. This is the first visible crack between Rhaenyra and her longest-serving ally. In Fire and Blood, Corlys becomes increasingly at odds with Rhaenyra's rule. He eventually negotiates peace terms behind her back. The line in trailer is beginning of that schemes. And it is also a direct setup for the storming of Dragon Pit, when small folk finally turn on Rhaenyra and kill 5 of her dragons. Rhaenyra confronts Alicent. I see you have been merciful, but the crown is a weight that crushes. Every word of this is loaded. See you have been a merciful is a sarcasm. Alicent promised to surrender Aegon. Bound, delivered, ready for execution. She opened the gate, but Larry Strong smuggled Aegon out through Maegor's tunnel before Rhaenyra arrived. Alicent mercy was either a lie or a failure. Rhaenyra does not care which. The crown is a weight that crushes is a direct thematic callback to Viserys first. His crown literally rotted his body over decades. In the books, when Rhaenyra first sits the Iron Throne, it cuts her. The throne rejects those unworthy to sit it, and the show has never clarified whether that is a metaphor or something more. Rhaenyra continues, "You'll do things that spell death for all involved." This line sits over footage of the gullet burning, ships on fire, dragons falling. The line is not just about Alicent, it is the thesis of the entire season. Every major character will do something that spells death for themselves and everyone else around them. Lord Ormond Hightower addresses the Reach. Little by little, bite by bite, we are exposing her as weak and unsuited to rule. This is the green propaganda machine. Ormond is not fighting a dragon war. He is fighting war of perception, undermining Rhaenyra's legitimacy even while she sits the throne. Then Aemon, she'll certainly fail and we will raise our own throne. Not Aegon's throne, not the throne as it exists. Our own throne. Aemon is the third claimant in a civil war that already has two. The Greens are not just fighting the Blacks anymore, they're fighting each other. Aegon is alive, burned, on the run, and has already declared he will kill his brother. Aemon is building something new at Harrenhal, and at Harrenhal we get the most talked about the single frame in any of the three trailers. Aemond and Elise River holding a dragon egg, blood smeared on it. Elise River is one of the most mysterious figures in Fire and Blood. She is rumored to be a witch, a bastard of House Strong, and far older than she appears. She becomes Aemon's lover at Harrenhal. She bears his child, and after the dance ends, she declares her son the true heir to the Iron Throne. The dragon egg is for their unborn child. The blood suggests it was taken by force. There are two theories about where the egg came from. One, Maegor the Cruel killed Aegon the Uncrowned and his dragon Quicksilver in a duel beneath the God's Eye near Harrenhal. Quicksilver could have laid eggs in the region. Two, Alicent traveled to Harrenhal with Jaehaera's cradle egg and delivered it to Aemon as a bargaining chip. Neither theory is confirmed, but the blood on the egg tells you this was not a gift, it was taken. Daemon speaks to Rhaenyra, "You've come so far, yet you still don't know who you are." This is Daemon's most intimate line across all three trailers, and it is loaded with book subtext. In Fire and Blood, Daemon's relationship with Rhaenyra fractures after the fall of King's Landing. He wants her to be a conqueror, ruthless, Valyrian, unconcerned with small folk or faith or political limitation. He's coaching her to become something she is not, but what she actually becomes is paranoid. Grieving mother who suspects everyone, including him. "You don't know who you are" is not romantic reassurance. It is a challenge, and their marriage does not survive what comes next. Then Rhaenyra explodes.
Have you not betrayed your queen? Bring Aegon, the usurper, to me.
The emotional centerpiece of the entire trailer, and she is not directing it at a green. She is looking at her own council. Someone in that room knew Aegon was being smuggled out. Someone in that room betrayed her, and the show refuses to tell you who. Larry Strong arranged the escape. Mysaria plays multiple sides. Corlys negotiate peace terms without her consent later. Even Daemon abandons her strategically for Harrenhal. The ambiguity is the point. Everyone around Rhaenyra has a reason to betray her, and her paranoia, which the book presents as a flaw, starts to look like only rational response. Alicent speaks the closing line over a montage of fire and bodies. "Did I not warn you that you would come to this?" It echoes every warning she has given since season 1, to her children, to Viserys, to Rhaenyra. But the trailer does not tell you who she is speaking to. Rhaenyra, who is losing herself to crown, Aemon, who is building his own throne at Harrenhal, herself for starting a war she can no longer control. The ambiguity is the point. Everyone has come to this. Everyone ignored the warning. The final title card, "The Throne Knows No Mercy." It is the same tagline from season 2, but after 2.5 minutes of slaughter, betrayal, and grief, after seeing Jace fly too low, the gullet born, the dragon egg with blood, Rhaenyra screaming at her own council, it does not read the same way. It is not a tagline anymore, it is eulogy. If you watch these trailers in order, you can see HBO building something deliberate. The first teaser is anticipation, dragons, war, the promise of a spectacle. It shows you what is coming, the gullet, the fall, the battle, and lets the excitement build. The second teaser is about character, the relationship fracturing. Damon coaching Rhaenyra, Aegon declaring fratricide, Aemon's ambition hardening, Alicent manipulating her own children. It pulls the spectacle and shows you people beneath it. The final trailer is about cost. It opens on dead bodies. It closes on eulogy. Every line of dialogue is about what this war will demand, and none of the characters are ready to pay it. Taken together, the three trailers tell a single story: how a war is sold as glory and delivered as ash. Season 3 premieres soon. You know now what the trailers buried in single frame and half-spoken line. The High Septon tipping the fate toward rebellion, the bondmen being born in a mountain cave, Wormex flying too low, a dragon egg with blood, Aemon building a throne that was never meant to exist. Whether the show delivers on all of it, that is a different question, but the trailers have done their job. They have shown you exactly what is coming. You just had to know where to look. If you love hunting for those hidden details as much as I do, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below. Which of these hidden details are you most excited to see play out in season 3? Let's talk in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.